It's debate night for the Republicans. I'd like to invite each candidate to introduce himself or herself.
The question is, how do we keep America safe from terrorism? Trump says we ought to close that internet thing. The question really is, what does he mean by that? Like they do in North Korea? Rubio says we should collect all Americans' records all of the time. I think if we ban certain religions, if we censor the internet, I think that at that point the terrorists will have won.
And just last weekend, a friend asked one of my daughters, do you like politics? And my daughter said, no, I don't. There's too much fighting, too much yelling. It's so loud, I don't like it.
I have been tested. I have beaten breast cancer. I have buried a child. I started as a secretary. I fought my way to the top of corporate America while being called every B word in the book.
America is at war. Our enemy is not violent extremism. It is not some unnamed malevolent force. It is radical Islamic terrorism.
Dr. Carson.
Thank you, Wolf. Please join me for a moment of silence in remembrance of the San Bernardino victims. Thank you.
A month ago, things changed. Radical Islamic terrorism came into effect even more so than it has been in the past. People like what I say, people respect what I say, and we've opened up a very big discussion that needed to be opened up. Thank you very much.
To keep the country safe, you say you want to temporarily ban non-American Muslims from coming to the United States, ban refugees fleeing ISIS from coming here, deport 11 million people, and wall off America's southern border. Is the best way to make America great again to isolate it from much of the rest of the world?
We're not talking about religion. We're talking about security. I will build a wall. It'll be a great wall. People will not come in unless they come in legally. And if I'm president, and if Obama has brought some to this country, they are leaving. They're going. They're gone.
So Donald, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate, and he'd be a chaos president. He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe.
Jeb doesn't really believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in this campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares. And frankly, I'm the most solid person up here. I built a tremendous company, and all I want to do is make America great again.
Banning all Muslims will make it harder for us to do exactly what we need to do, which is to destroy ISIS.
So you have said banning Muslims is unconstitutional, but according to a recent ABC News Washington Post poll, a majority of Republicans support Mr. Trump's idea.
Well, I understand why they feel that way, because this president hasn't kept us safe. The attacker in San Bernardino was an American citizen. Born and raised in this country, he was a health inspector, had a newborn child, and left all that behind to kill 14 people.
With the kind of specificity and responsiveness you delivered in your 9 Supreme Court arguments, how you disagree with Mr. Trump. Will you spell that out with us?
Well, I'm reminded of what FDR's grandfather said. He said, all horse thieves are Democrats, but not all Democrats are horse thieves. There are millions of peaceful Muslims across the world, and we should direct at the problem, focus on the problem, and defeat radical Islamic terrorism. It's not a war on a faith, it's a war on a political and theocratic ideology.
Senator Cruz, you voted for a bill that President Obama signed into law just this past June that made it harder for the government to access Americans' phone records. Was your vote a mistake?
Well, Dana, the premise of your question is not accurate. I'm very proud to have joined with conservatives in both the Senate and the House to reform how we target bad guys. And what the USA Freedom Act did is it did two things. Number one, it ended the federal government's bulk collection of phone metadata. The prior program only covered a relatively narrow slice of phone calls. The USA Freedom Act expands that, so now we have cell phones, now we have internet phones, now we have the phones the terrorists are likely to use.
We are now at a time when we need more tools, not less tools. And that tool we lost, the metadata program, was a valuable tool that we no longer have at our disposal.
Marco knows what he's saying isn't true. What he knows is that the old program covered 20 to 30% of phone numbers to search for terrorists. The new program covers nearly 100%. That gives us greater ability to stop acts of terrorism.
This bill did, however, take away a valuable tool that allowed the National Security Agency and other intelligence agencies to quickly and rapidly access phone records and match them up with other phone records. The next time there is an attack on this country, the first thing people are going to want to know is, why didn't we know about it and why didn't we stop it? And the answer better not be because we didn't have access to records or information that would have allowed us to identify these killers before they attacked us.
I think Marco gets it completely wrong here. We are not any safer through the bulk collection of all Americans' records. In fact, I think we're less safe. We get so distracted by all of the information, we're not spending enough time getting specific information on terrorists. And Marco has opposed at every point increased security, border security for those who come to our country. So Marco can't have it both ways. He thinks he wants to be this, oh, I'm great and strong on national defense, but he's the weakest of all the candidates on immigration. Marco has more of an allegiance to Chuck Schumer and to the liberals than he does to conservative policy.
I want to thank Rand for another 30 seconds because, number one, what he's pointing to is a bill last week, an amendment he voted for that only 10 people voted for. You know why? Because it's not focused on terrorists. It would have banned anyone from coming here. Someone from Taiwan would not have been able to come here. And the terrorist that attacked us in San Bernardino was an American citizen, born and raised in this country. And I bet you we wish we would have had access to 5 years of his record so we could see who he was working with before they carried out another attack.
I want to talk to the audience at home for a second. If your eyes are glazing over like mine, this is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate. I mean, endless debates about how many angels on the head of a pin from people who've never had to make a consequential decision in an executive position. And for the 7 years afterwards, New Jersey was threatened like no other region in this country. And what we did was we took actions within the Constitution to make sure that law enforcement had all the information they needed. We prosecuted 2 of the biggest terrorism cases in the world and stopped Fort Dix from being attacked by 6 American radicalized Muslims from a mosque in New Jersey. This is the difference between actually having been a federal prosecutor, actually doing something, and just spending your life as one of 100 debating it.
You're in favor of monitoring mosques and schools where there is anti-American sentiment.
Well, first of all, let me just complain a little bit. This is the first time I've spoken, and several people have had multiple questions, so please try to pay attention to that. We need to make sure that any place, I don't care whether it's a mosque, a school, a supermarket, if there are a lot of people getting there, engaging in radicalizing activities, then we need to be suspicious of it.
Dr. Carson, who was right in that little debate we just heard between Senator Rubio and Senator Paul?
I think you have to ask them about that. I don't want to get in between them. Let them fight.
Wolf. Companies there, they say they won't help the FBI now crack encrypted communications from ISIS. Should they be forced to?
And then we now learn that DHS says, no, we can't check their social media. For heaven's sakes, every parent in America is checking social media, and every employer is as well, but our government can't do it.
But my question was, should these Silicon Valley companies be forced to cooperate with the FBI?
They do not need to be forced. They need to be asked. I was asked as a CEO. I complied happily, and they will as well. But they have not been asked. That's why it cost billions of dollars to build an Obama website that failed.
You recently suggested closing that internet up, those were your words, as a way to stop ISIS from recruiting online.
Well, look, this is so easy to answer. ISIS is recruiting through the internet. What I wanted to do is I wanted to get our brilliant people from Silicon Valley and other places and figure out a way that ISIS cannot do what they're doing. I don't want them using our internet. And then on second, we should be able to penetrate the internet and find out exactly where ISIS is and everything about ISIS. And we can do that if we use our good people.
So are you open to closing parts of the internet?
I would certainly be open to closing areas where we are at war with somebody. I sure as hell don't want to let people that want to kill us and kill our nation use our internet. Yes, sir, I am.
Senator Cruz, you have said you would, quote, carpet bomb ISIS into oblivion Does that mean leveling the ISIS capital of Raqqa in Syria, where there are hundreds of thousands of civilians?
You would carpet bomb where ISIS is, not a city, but the location of the troops. You use air power directed, and you have embedded special forces to direct the air power.
Senator Rubio, you've been critical of Senator Cruz's strategy. You say his voting record doesn't match his rhetoric. Why?
We have to understand who ISIS is. ISIS is a radical Sunni group. They cannot just be defeated through airstrikes, but they must be defeated on the ground by a ground force. And that ground force must be primarily made up of Sunni Arabs themselves. Sunni Arabs that reject them ideologically and confront them militarily. We will have to embed additional American special operators alongside them. He has also supported, by the way, a budget that is called the containment budget. And it is a budget that would radically reduce the amount of money we spend on our military. You can't carpet bomb ISIS if you don't have planes and bombs to attack them with.
Yes, it is true that I voted against the National Defense Authorization Act because when I campaigned in Texas, I told voters in Texas that I would oppose the federal government having the authority to detain U.S. citizens permanently with no due process.
If you're an American citizen and you decide to join up with ISIS, we're not going to read you your Miranda rights. You're going to be treated as an enemy combatant, a member of an army attacking this country.
I'm Josh Jacob from Georgia Tech. Recently, Donald Trump mentioned that we must kill the families of ISIS members. How would intentionally killing innocent civilians set us apart from ISIS?
We have people that know what's going on. You take a look at just the attack in California the other day. There were numerous people, including the mother, that knew what was going on. They saw pipe bombs sitting all over the floor. They saw ammunition all over the place. They knew exactly what was going on. I would be very, very firm with families. And frankly, that will make people think, because they may not care much about their lives, but they do care, believe it or not, about their families' lives.
The idea that that is a solution to this is just crazy. It makes no sense to suggest this. Look, 2 months ago, Donald Trump said, and he gets his foreign policy experience from the shows.
The problem is, we need toughness. Honestly, I think Jeb is a very nice person. He's a very nice person, but we need tough people. We need toughness. We need intelligence, and we need tough.
You said in September 30th that ISIS was not a
Am I
not
talking or are you talking, Jeb?
I'm talking right now. I'm talking.
You can go back. You're not talking. You interrupted me,
September 30th,
Jeb. Are you going to
you
apologize, Jeb? No. So,
little of your
again,
own medicine there.
I know you're trying to build
Bush,
up your energy,
please,
Jeb, but it's not working
one at a time.
Yeah.
Look. We need a toughness. We need strength.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have the strength.
Could you do that? Could you order airstrikes that would kill innocent children by not the scores, but the hundreds and the thousands? Could you wage war as a commander-in-chief?
You should see the eyes of some of those children when I say to them, we're going to have to open your head up and take out this tumor. They're not happy about it, believe me. And they don't like me very much at that point. And by the same token, you have to be able to look at the big picture. It's actually merciful if you go ahead and finish the job.
So you are okay with the deaths of thousands of innocent children and civilians? It's like...
You got it. You got it.
That is what war can...
You said ISIS grew stronger because of the hawks in your party. Do you really think that Republicans have fueled the rise of ISIS?
If you are going to kill the families of terrorists, realize that there's something called the Geneva Convention we're going to have to pull out of. So when you ask yourself, whoever you are that think you're going to support Donald Trump, think, do you believe in the Constitution? Are you going to change the Constitution?
So they can kill us, but we can't kill them. That's what you're saying. And as far as the internet is concerned, I'm talking about parts of Syria, parts of Iraq, where ISIS is. What I like even better than that is getting our smartest and getting our best to infiltrate their internet. I like that better. But we have to... Who would be... I just can't imagine somebody booing. These are people that want to kill us, folks. And you're objecting to us infiltrating their conversations? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Dr. Carson, what's your strategy?
You know, this whole concept of boots on the ground You know, we've got a phobia about boots on the ground. If our military experts say we need boots on the ground, we should put boots on the ground and recognize there will be boots on the ground, and they'll be over here, and they'll be their boots if we don't get them out of there now.
Mr. Trump, are Americans safer with dictators running the world in the Middle East?
In my opinion, we've spent $4 trillion trying to topple various people that, frankly, if they were there and if we could have spent that $4 trillion in the United States to fix our roads, our bridges, and all of the other problems, our airports, and all of the other problems we have, we would have been a lot better off. I can tell you that right now.
Dr. Carson, is the Middle East, Dr. Carson,
Iraq.
is the Middle East better off with dictators?
There comes a time, you know, when you're on an airplane, they always say, in case of an emergency, oxygen mask will drop down, put yours on first, and then administer help to your neighbor. We need oxygen right now, and we need to start thinking about the needs of the American people before we go and try to solve everybody else's problems.
Was getting rid of Saddam Hussein a pretty good deal?
There's often variations of evil on both sides of the war. What we have to decide is whether or not regime change is a good idea. Out of regime change, you get chaos. From the chaos, you've seen repeatedly the rise of radical Islam because they allow terrorism to arise out of that chaos.
Thank you, Senator.
The question of whether we should be the question of whether we should be toppling the question of whether we should be toppling dictatorships is asking the wrong question. We should be defeating our enemies. So the problem with defeating
Senator, we're going to get to you. Wait your turn. We have 2 hours debate. We'll have plenty of time. Let Hugh ask his question.
Well, but let me explain. The focus
Senator,
should be on defeating our enemies. So, for example,
Senator,
a regime
you'll
we
have
should
plenty of
change
opportunity.
is
Hugh, go
Iran,
ahead.
because Iran
Go ahead, Hugh.
has declared war on us. But we shouldn't be toppling
Senator,
regimes that are fighting radical Islamic terrorists and that are helping.
These are the rules all of you agree to. Hugh, go ahead with your question. Governor Christie, if the U.S. imposed a no-fly zone over Syria and a Russian plane invaded that no-fly zone, would you be prepared to shoot down that Russian plane?
Not only are we prepared to do it, I would do it. A no-fly zone means a no-fly zone. Wolf, that's what it means. See, maybe because I'm from New Jersey, I just have this kind of plain language hang-up. And yes, we would shoot down the planes of Russian pilots if, in fact, they were stupid enough to think that this president was the same feckless weakling that the president we have in the Oval Office is right now.
Well, I think if you're in favor of World War III, you have your candidate. My goodness, what we want in a leader is someone with judgment, not someone who is so reckless as to stand on the stage and say, yes, I'm jumping up and down. I'm going to shoot down Russian planes. I mean, I think when we think about the judgment of someone who might want World War III, we might think about someone who might shut down a bridge because they don't like their friends. They don't want to, they want to get a Democrat. So I think we need to be very careful about
Governor
that.
Christie.
Why are you better qualified to deal with Vladimir Putin than Mr. Trump?
Because first of all, I know what I don't know. I won't get my information from the shows. I don't know if that's Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I don't know which one. I hope they know that if I'm president, I'll be a commander-in-chief, not an agitator-in-chief or a divider-in-chief, that I will lead this country in a way that will create greater security and greater safety.
I think it's very sad that CNN leads Jeb Bush, Governor Bush, down a road by starting off virtually all of the questions. Mr. Trump this, I think it's very sad. And frankly, I think it's very sad.
Look, the simple fact is, if you think this is tough and you're not being treated
this
fairly,
isn't tough and easy.
Imagine what it's going to be like dealing with Putin, or dealing with President
Jeff.
Xi, or dealing with the Islamic terrorism that exists. This is a tough business to run for president.
I know, you're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
real
principled.
tough.
You're never going to be president of the United States
tough,
by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see, I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
So far I'm doing better. You know, you started off over here, Jeb. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the end.
This doesn't do a thing.
Go ahead.
It sounds more and more what my daughter said that I said in the beginning. All the fighting and arguing is not advancing us.
Senator Rubio, you co-authored a bill with Democrats 2 years ago that allowed a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. Do you still support that path to citizenship?
And here's what we learned in 2013. The American people don't trust the federal government to enforce our immigration laws. And we will not be able to do anything on immigration until we first prove to the American people that illegal immigration is under control. I am personally open, after all of that has happened, and after 10 years in that probationary status where all they have is a work permit, I personally am open to allowing people to apply for a green card. That may not be a majority position in my party, but that's down the road. You can't even begin that process until you prove to people, not just pass a law that says you're going to bring illegal immigration under control. You're going to have to do it and prove to people that it's working.
Senator Cruz, on the campaign trail, Senator Rubio has said that his immigration plan isn't that different from yours.
If I'm elected president, we will secure the border. We will triple the Border Patrol. We will build a wall that works, and I'll get Donald Trump to pay for it.
I'll build it.
That for Marco to suggest our record's the same, it is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire.
If the Bible clearly states that we need to embrace those in need and not fear, how can we justify not accepting refugees?
Governor Christie, what do you say to Carla?
What I say to Carla is that the first job of the President of the United States is to protect your safety and your security and the security and safety of your family.
Mr. Trump, just this weekend you said Senator Cruz is not qualified to be president because he doesn't have the right temperament and acted like a maniac when he arrived in the Senate. But last month you said you were open to naming Senator Cruz as your running mate.
I did.
So why would you be willing to put somebody who's a maniac one heartbeat away from the presidency?
But I've gotten to know him over the last 3 or 4 days. He has a wonderful temperament. He's just fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am. I'll be honest. I really am. I mean, people have been putting me to question. I really am.
I could applaud.
If I'm elected president, we will win again. We will win a lot. And we're going to have a great, great country, greater than ever before. Thank you.
Thanks to all the Republican presidential candidates. That does it for this Republican presidential debate.